Yeah, great to have you tuned in again. Today we've got another really awesome topic. I'm gonna restore the rocker panels on a Golf Mark 5, or rather, partially replace them. Depending on the condition, right here on this side, we've got some rust. Yeah, but it's pretty badly corroded underneath. It almost goes all the way up to here. But I don't know yet if it's rusted all the way through or not. We'll find out. Yeah, that's just how it is. It's the usual spot here. The wheel arches don't look too bad. And then it starts back here. Like here, it starts way up top, and down here, it's already severely corroded underneath the underbody coating all the way up to here. Now here, of course, there's a wheel arch liner inside, and you can see for yourself what's going on here. Yeah, and it'll get even worse once the wheel arch liner is out. Alright, so I'm gonna take this out here first. You've got all this dirt in here. That is precisely what I mean. Right there. Leads to rust. So I also took out these two down here. Yeah, but it's not quite as bad as on the other side. Over there, the whole thing was already completely gone. There was already a hole right here. I just messed around a bit and poked at it. Then I already had the sheet metal in my hand, so of course that needs to be welded in new here as well. I'll probably go ahead and say, okay, I'm gonna scrub this with the brush as much as I can. I'll take out these two dowels first, so I don't damage them. Then I'll go up as far as possible. And of course, I'm always happy when they put a seam in the bodywork here. I mean, well, you can tell it's done industrially, but down here, there's nothing at all. Either it completely vanished gradually over the course of many years, or they really just decided to say, come on, we don't actually need it anymore. That's typical here. That's because the wheel well liner was in here, and all the way up to here, the whole thing was packed with dirt. So we had moisture in here, dirt in here, and the bodywork moves while you're driving. Yeah, and you have to imagine, it's like the dirt. Over the years, it grinds away the paint here like sandpaper. Then you end up with bare metal showing, and because the dirt holds moisture, it does the rest. And that's when it starts to rot. That's what we're trying to do here now. All with the twisted wire brush, with the cut brush. I'm trying to sand everything down nice and clean again, so there's really no rust left here. And the little bit of rust that's still in the pores, we'll get rid of that with rust converter and then apply rust protection primer. So we found another spot now. I've opened it up now. There was a real bubble there. If I pull it up here, now you can see the water coming out here. It's completely filled with water inside. Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, but that is still gonna be okay. Yeah, so I think it's fine. Let's go over it with the brush. Now the rust is coming off first. That was honestly the very first starting point where I thought, okay, maybe it could still work, but as you can see here, someone has already worked on it before. But unfortunately, they didn't do it the way I would have liked to do it. So here, filler was just applied directly onto the rust because this, I'm sure, is filler material. I knew it right away too. When I went over it with the brush, it probably made some dust. Well, I immediately knew, alright, got it. Now we just have to see if we can preserve this here. Because this is the fender mount, that's where the fender sits. Yeah, you can see it for yourself here. Everything here is already wobbling quite a bit. I don't even want to keep working here right now. At least not with the brush. What's really a bit of a pain here is the situation with the door. So the way it looks now, I'll probably have to take the door off, because I have to. Yeah, so here, I really want to get this out in one big piece, so I need to be able to work here, and that's not possible with the door in the way. I had to take the door off now. Because, like I said, we'll probably just have to make a cut right around here. then over the top here, and then cut across there. But when I look at the bodywork theme there, it's already pretty well rusted underneath. So if I try it here now, I'm already thinking, yeah, okay. I'll go over it with the wire brush, and then we'll see how far up it goes. But I do think we'll definitely have to go up to here. Here on the rocker panel, I noticed something where I thought I could still save it, but others have already worked on it. They put filler on the rocker panel before. That's why this side looked a bit better too. I was actually pretty optimistic that there wouldn't be as much work here as on the other side. On the other side, I just put in a small piece of sheet metal from the back. And here, of course, the whole rocker panel is gone. Yeah, and they just used filler here, but didn't... Yeah, they didn't seal it from the inside. Alright friends, now I've cut it out as needed, and where the next piece of sheet metal meets, I've made a flush of course, because that's where our weld spots will go. So it gets connected, and later on, body sealant will go back into the gap. Yeah, I've made it nice and flush, and now rust converter goes on it. And of course here, where the rocker panel was, I cut it out properly, did it myself, and of course here as well, at the top, where it will be joined, did it myself, and I'll do the fan down there, again as well. Where the sheet metal will be attached, it also needs to be cleaned up. Now take a look at this sheet metal here. This is from the inside now. I already saw with the endoscope camera that down here, inside the lower IXL, there must have been standing water, and it stretches all the way to the back. That's why I decided to put the reinforcement in. Right here, that's exactly where body sealant will be applied later as well. But for now, I'm going to coat it with rust converter first. I have to completely scrub off the underbody protection here. So now we're down to bare metal here. That way, I can properly fit the other reinforcement here. Now, I still have to patch in some sheet metal here. Since there was quite a bit of mold growing underneath it, I have now securely fixed it into its proper place using these heavy-duty locking pliers. Now, I'll just tack weld this in place, and I've already coated everything here with rust converter, since it was all rusted away. Technically, this part isn't actually part of the rocker panel, it still belongs to the wheel arch. Now the weld seams will be ground smooth here, and then the body sealant will be applied. And then this will also be properly sealed so that nothing can happen there anymore. So we have a new day now. The rocker panel has arrived now. I had a bit of a cold for a day in between, but the car needs to get finished because the weather's getting worse. And like I said, this lift here isn't really suitable for working on rocker panels, because then you can't work down here anymore where the lift point is, so I have to hurry up a bit now. So now you can see here, I've put some tape here now. Yeah, it's just an aftermarket rocker panel. It's just not completely original. Yeah, and now the new rocker panel goes all the way up there. But I don't need that, because that's just how it's made. I really only need the part that's rusted away. That's why I took this tape here now. I put it right up here, where the curve is, about the middle of the curve, and taped it off. Then I flipped it over here and drew a line underneath with a pencil, right here along the bottom edge of the sheet metal. And this is what it looks like. The line is exactly underneath, right at the edge. Like this. And that's perfect now, because now I take the tape and go over to the new rocker panel and stick the tape exactly in the same spot again. And then where the line is, I just cut the rocker panel with the angle grinder. You can see that this here is the original edge, and it doesn't go out that far. Out. Everything's too far, so only a little piece will be put in here. That's just how it is, unfortunately. I have to adjust the rocker panel because, as you saw, it doesn't fit like this. One side really should look just like the other side, so we have to do it this way. I think I'll start by using tape for now. Yeah, so that so that I can at least position the rocker panel here and do a test fit to see where some touch-ups are still needed and where not. Alright, I've transferred it over here now. That means we've now got our adhesive edge here, just like we did on the other side. And from here, I made the line underneath. So this is what it looks like now after I've transferred it. I measured it out here, but I left a little extra space. It actually only goes up to about here. But I left more space here because once it's cut off here, I can fit it better. And then I can make another cut afterwards if needed. But that's basically the principle, just the edge. And now I'll cut here. This part is waste, and this is what we need. And here, it's really important that the rocker panel matches the geometry of this part. This curve needs to line up. Yeah, like I said, we'll cut this part away again later, so that it looks clean here like it does up top, and we have a slight edge. And then it's good like that. Now that I've made my mark here, I can look through here, roughly. I intentionally left it a bit longer, so I can trim off more later if needed. So here I have the mark, and on the other side you can see it here. Of course, it's important that the rocker panel sits flush at the back, alright folks? Now I've cut off what I had marked, and I'll deburr it right away. The edge looks nice and clean, but I also adjusted it over here so that there's a nice curve here. You won't really see much of the edge later anyway, once the underbody protection is applied. But still, I want it to look a bit clean, you know? And on the other side as well. For example, here you still have to drill a hole because this is where the dowel goes in. And this is what it looks like here. On the other side, so that's this here. Here's the dowel already in place. I've already finished this side, and I don't even want to touch it too much since it's all done. You still have to drill a hole there because that's where the wall bracket will go in. So I held it up there now, and of course I saw that we were too far away at the bottom. The problem is simply this edge here. So that's what I mean here. I have it kind of loosely in place here, but still. If we look underneath here, Mal, then it's too far away. Then it's too far away. I mean, I didn't even focus it. Now this edge here, this one, it's too far away. I can't even weld it. That's why I already pushed it up a bit in the front. But I can see right now that it's still not enough. We're still too far away, so you'd pretty much have to make the edge almost straight so you can tack it properly at the top. That means we're already good here. Yeah, and here. So now it's bent through again here. You could see at first that it was pretty straight, then it bent up pretty steeply. Now, it's looking completely straight for me. I have worked on it and made it just as straight as I possibly could. At this point, we have successfully gained the necessary clearance upwards, moving towards that inner spot, and now we will just have to wait and see if that is going to be enough for our needs. After all the work, I've roughly put it in place now. This is where it'll be nicely welded. Here, so we'll pull it over Denmark. That works, but of course it could be that I still have to do a bit of touch-up work here, as you can see now. Now, of course, it's a whole different ball game, because now that we've got the part, the sheet metal, it basically went up to here, and then it slanted over like this. So it went like this and like that. Back then, we were miles away from where we needed to be. And now we've really got it. So now you can say, okay, it's flush here. And when I weld in a new sheet of replacement metal, I want this sheet to slide into place perfectly and easily, without any tension. I really don't like the idea of welding under tension. The sheet metal has to sit exactly as it does now. Right now, it's supported a bit at the front with a hammer, like this. And now it sits nicely in there and goes all the way to the corner, so that's really good. You can see up here at the front, it's actually even better this way around, which will be even better later when tacking. So what we still need to do now is, once this is properly fixed in place, the sheet metal again. Then I'll trace around it completely with a pencil, and then I have to hammer it flat, yes, because we want to have a good connection. The sheet metal's okay as it is, but we want a solid connection to the bodywork. The inner sill still needs to be painted again, because that's the plan, to bleach it. I mean, it's coming as an E-seal for 3, but as they say, double is better. Of course, there was a bit of a problem at these corners again, because as I said, it was straight. Here and now, I just had a high spot everywhere. Yeah, that means I was resting here, and those parts were hanging in the air, so it wasn't as flush as it is now. But now, because when I clamp it, it has to be level with everything else, so that everything fits. Now I've hammered in another dent here, because here it rises up again. So I hammered in another dent. So that you can get up there, that will be pulled again, but there's no more filling needed. I sanded it down with a flap disc. Now we have a really good surface for welding. In terms of electrical pump tech, after we fitted it for the umpteenth time now, yeah, but that's just how it is. It has to fit roughly first. So I've reworked this corner here again so that it's flush at the top. And now I can also tell, when I put it in here, everything fits. So at the bottom, we've grounded down, everything's ready. Before we weld it in place, of course, we first have to apply a rust protection primer inside. For that, we'll first degrease the inside surface so the coating sticks better. So here's an abrasive pad, and now we're going to go in and roughly sand it all the way down. Then we'll go over the whole thing and degrease it. We'll also tidy up the other side now. And then we can go ahead and weld it and also paint it. Then we just need a little degreasing, like this. Now I'm going to degrease the whole thing. Yeah, I'm just using regular glass cleaner for this. That's enough. All right, done. And then we'll just do it ourselves. Then we let it air out for a bit, and once that is finished, we can already go ahead and apply the rust protection. You should remove the corners. There's a sharp edge there. Yeah, that hasn't been taken off yet, like this. Of course, it looks really nice here. When cleaning, I sanded the surface. That's why we need to be careful there. And there's something here too. I didn't actually get stuck there, but yeah. So now I've got it here. For the metal primer, I'm using this Mimbar Metal Primer Premium. I actually use it pretty often because it's not a 2K component, but a 1K component. But it's alkyd resin, and that's always been great. So why should it be any worse now? And now I'm using that as a metal primer and brushing out the inside of the speller completely. Alright, I've brushed it lengthwise once now. Now we'll let it air out a bit, and then we'll do the next coat in the other direction. Basically, so that we've crossed the layers. That way it covers better. So earlier, I painted the whole thing all the way through. So I brushed the first coat lengthwise, the second coat crosswise, and the last coat lengthwise again. So now we have 3 coats on here, which should be thick enough. It's important to always let each coat air out nicely in between. It'll turn matte, and then you can apply the next coat. If you don't do that, otherwise you'll end up pulling up the lower layer again, and we definitely don't want that. We want to have a nice thick layer on the inside, so that nothing will ever rust again. That's how the whole thing dried. Now, of course, we have to make sure to get the edges again. Yeah, because you just can't avoid it. The edges get sanded automatically, they get brushed over automatically. You just go over those spots again. Use a sanding pad where you'll be welding, so it's nice and clean and you get good contact. Then the sheet metal can already be aligned. Now, onto the car, and done. And then you spot weld the radio. It's only 8 o'clock, but it already feels crazy dark in here. I almost said it's 9:30, but it's only 8. Looks like I'm actually gonna reach my goal today after all. Because, as you saw, I welded it now. I just sanded it down again, and then maybe I went over some of the weld spots that weren't perfect and re-welded them. So now everything's good and safe so far. Now I'm gonna degrease the whole thing again and then apply this Bremer rust protection primer. Now brush it on here all over the entire sill, including over the weld seams. And then the drying process can start. We're going to do the same thing here now. So you've now seen the first round. Let's go through it once. Let it air out. So again, with the same stuff. Then we'll do it one more time. So 2 to 3 times we'll paint it on the Gintal. That's it for me for today. So now we've got this body adhesive here, feeling compound. We're going to go over all the places where the sheet metal overlaps now, and so on. Now, everywhere there are seams like that, we're going to go over them once, because this stuff needs to dry inside again. This is exactly what it looks like when it's finally done. Just smeared the seam completely shut, down along here, and then right inside here. Everywhere the sheet metal overlaps, basically. There was the factory seam that ran down here, but it stopped here, so I continued it further down. And of course, also here, the sheet metal that I patched in here. So right now at this point, I've thoroughly degreased the surface one more time. You can still see it slowly airing out and drying a little bit. So once that's dry, we can start here with the fiberglass film to smoothly fill in all of the transitions. Alright, now we've applied the first 2 layers of filler. Now, I'm starting with an orbital sander. You can also do it normally. Sanding, it doesn't matter. Now here I have 120 grit sandpaper on it, but you can also use 150 grit. With that, I'm gonna sand the filler first. And I'll also sand a fine filler with the same pad. For now, it's completely taped off and sealed because I didn't want to, since I thought, come on, I could vacuum it out from the inside again, but it's just far too much dust to deal with. That's why I decided to hang this plastic sheet up here like this for now. It's not too much, especially from the fine filler. That one creates a bit more dust than the glass fiber filler, and it's definitely significantly better to handle it this way. Now I've applied another thin layer of filler. What I also wanted to mention, of course, is that we have to leave the triangles uncovered. Those are the arrows here for the mounting points. So they show you where the vehicle is to be lifted. So down here, underneath, is the mounting point, and we mustn't cover that with filler. So otherwise, that looks pretty good now. Now, of course, I have to carefully clean out this corner right here, which actually takes quite a bit of time, just to make sure you have a nice edge with a perfectly clean finish. Yeah, so now we have to move on. Thoroughly wipe all the dust off, and then give it a good degreasing. Then we'll mask everything off, because now we're going to apply the primer. That's the next step now. Before we tape everything off, we'll degrease it again, just to be safe. Because we've had some glue and our hands involved, you know how it is. Or you could just put on gloves, of course, but I'm just not a big fan of gloves. You've probably already noticed me. I've sanded it down up to this point now. Yeah, like that. If I want to fill up to here now, I should actually roughen this part up too. Yeah, otherwise the filler won't bond properly, right? Exactly. We're taping here because it gets rough. Here too, all the way down to here. So for now, I'm only filling up to the edge here. You tape it off right here at the edge. And of course, we also have to tape off the door, obviously, because we don't want to fill there. There's already a bit of filler smeared on here, but I can get that off. Now we're at the point where we are ready to begin the filling process in this area. Yeah, there is going to be a distinct edge right here, a filler edge along this section. But that's not a problem, because later on, we'll just sand it down with 600 grit wet sandpaper to make it smooth. That's not a problem, because we have to sand the back anyway, since there are still a few little bumps up here. I still have to remove those too, and we'll just take care of it all at once. All right. Now we've got it taped off like this. And like I said, we're going to sand up a bit back here. I've done that now. So that's how far we're going to go in now. And a little bit of overspray up there isn't a problem either, because you can just get rid of that with wet sandpaper. So now everything is prepped and ready. Now we can go ahead and apply the filler here. I've now dusted everything off again, even from underneath inside. It's important that we have a nice sharp edge. Yeah, and now apply the filler up here and all the way down below too. So from all sides, even from here. So I go in here and do exactly the same on the other side. Some extra filler is also placed in there. And then we've already got a good base here. So we're going to apply the filler in multiple layers now. I'll put on 2 or 3 coats of filler. And then we'll just leave the whole thing like that until tomorrow morning. Yeah, because I already had the problem before. Once it was filled, the filler sanded beautifully when wet. It was really as smooth as a baby's bottom. And then it comes off down here. On the rocker panel, an underbody coating will be applied from the outside. It gets masked off there. Right where I had masked it off, on what I thought was dry filler, I ended up with tape marks. Good, because this is the very last layer. So when I apply the bitumen, once that's done and the bitumen is dry, the base coat will be applied. At that point, I really can't do anything more with the filter. So now we're going to degrease it again, really clean it up. either with silicone remover, or I have glass cleaner here, which works just as well. Yeah, you just have to make sure with the glass cleaner, you need to check once you're done. With the grease, you need to let it air out a bit. So don't start right away, but let it air out first. Hi, friends. The paper is clean. There's not even an edge. That's nice. Yeah, that's nice. We'll smooth that out nicely with wet sandpaper once it's dry. Now you have spots like this here, for example, right here. That's why I always say, when you apply filler, you notice things that weren't properly filled before. So we've got another spot here and another one back here. And here we've got something like, well, like a wavy line. Yeah, now we can cheat a little here and we can use filler because you never get it all in one go. Like if you don't feel like filling anymore, for example. So now we'll put some filler into a can, into the cap of the can. Take the cap and dab it on here with a brush and keep dabbing until we get a little bump here. We'll do the same thing here. It goes pretty quickly because it's thicker that way. And then we can just sand it down, and then it's nice and clean. That is exactly how we go through the entirely complete procedure. I intentionally only did this upper strip 3 times because that is the clearly visible and prominent area where the paint will be. And from here down we have a seam, like an underbody protection edge, so we really do not have any need to perform any additional work there. Let me show you again what I mean. Now here I've sprayed filler into the can. The advantage, of course, is that it flashes off in the can and gets thicker. This way, it can be applied much thicker than I could do during the spraying process. To do this properly, I use a very thin brush, carefully dip it into the paint, and then I smoothly apply it right here just like this. Yeah, if you want to put a thick drop on there like that, you just can't do that with the spray can. Now I let the drop set a little and then, for example, move over to the side here. I put a thicker drop on. Watch the spacing here and the flash off time, because otherwise you'll end up pulling up the base layer again. All right, now we take some 400 grit sandpaper and sand it down nicely with water. All the way, so we get a really nice smooth surface. We make the transitions nice and clean. If you run your finger over it, you shouldn't feel anything anymore. The transition has to be absolutely flawless. Every single thing that we are doing here is ultimately the final finish for the base coat. If we make a mistake here, that mistake will show up in the base coat too. That's why we have to work extremely cleanly here. Everything has to be absolutely perfect. No room for uncertainty. If there's any doubt or uncertainty at all, it's better to fill it again, because those spots will show up later. And once you filled it, there shouldn't be anything visible anywhere. Then it's perfect and you sand it again with wire. Of course, you have to be careful not to sand through the filler, because any spots where you've sanded through will also show up in the base coat. All right, now we're done. Yeah, we've sanded down to the metal a little bit here, but that's not a problem, because we'll just mist it with the base coat. Before that, we'll let it air out a bit, mist it again briefly, and then the color will be even. The important thing is that it's degreased properly like that. And now here, where I said we filled it in, the edge is smooth as hell. Or here, this wave that was in there, That's how it has to be if you don't feel anything with your finger here. Of course, if your finger's numb, just use another finger. But if you feel here now, you shouldn't notice anything. It really has to be like when you run your hand over a mirror. That's how it should be. And then you'll have a perfect surface. Later, for the base coat, because this here is our layer for the base coat. If this is perfect, then the base coat will be perfect too. Now I'm going to take this off here. Original, and then it goes down and inside with Badoom. That's how it was from the factory, yeah, and that's what they had from the underbody. Hold up a little bit from the rocker panel up, and of course we're going to do the same thing again so that it looks original. Now we'll measure out the 2 centimeter line from the edge here downwards, because that's how it is on the original side over there. That's how it is. It needs to have 2 centimeters of space first, then comes the underbody protection. And I'll try to do that with a straight edge because taping it off now is difficult. So getting it straight there is very difficult with masking tape. That's why I'm going to use a straight edge here and draw a line all the way across. Just draw a line through. And make sure it's sitting straight. And then I'll tape it off so that I go over the line, so that you can cover up the line with the underbody coating. All right, now I've made the line. It goes all the way to the back, but of course we always have to keep an eye on it. Right here at this spot, it's hard to measure the 2 centimeters, but there's no reference point here. So you could just go ahead and do it. It has to go up from the bottom corner. Shoot, yeah, that could work. You can take the measurement from above. But the way I handled this was that I just carefully extended the physical straight edge along the line right here, and as you can see, that works perfectly fine for our purposes. You could use the level, but the straight edge is just easier for me. It's not that complicated. So, and everything that's here now. Like I said, up here, we had to work extremely precisely everywhere, and what's down here isn't as critical. We didn't dedicate quite as much time on that specific part because the epoxy goes right on top, and that hides any imperfections. If you have a little bit of filler somewhere and it's not exactly perfect, the concrete will smoothly take care of it because it's on there and it goes right over it, so that's fine. Now, of course, you go just above the line, not completely flush, but just above it. So basically, you put the tape right on the line and tape it all off. And yeah, then of course you spread out a fairly large surface area with newspaper. And then we start with the underbody protection, so then I spray it in from underneath and then continue from the top. Then the whole thing has to dry for 24 hours. We can't paint it before that. So now we've taped everything off. Looks good. You can still see the pencil line a little, so everything's fine. And now I'm starting with the underbody protection. That means I'll start from underneath first. First, spray it in. Let it run through underneath first. And then when I'm done underneath, I'll go along the top here. Yeah, this is what it looks like now. Nice and clean. I also did the wheel arch seams, at least where I worked on the metal here. But I'll still put some grease on it again. In theory, I could have sprayed the whole wheel arch with it now, and then put grease on it again, but the problem is just this. You can see, if something starts to creep in here, it's obviously much better with the gray underbody protection, because then you might actually see some rust spots starting to show through. With black, it's very hard to see, but still, when it comes to the underbody, it's just one of those things. Because, like I said, you saw for yourselves what was going on there, how everything can creep underneath. Look, this slide actually looks pretty good, because the concrete covers a lot, but if you turn it over, you can see that everything here has been infiltrated. Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm not really an underbody protection fanatic. Yeah, I would honestly rather just grease the bottom surface a little bit, make sure we do it properly, and that already looks much better than it did before. So now, of course, I have to prepare everything here for painting, which means I'm going to tape here. I'm taping off right here at the bend. With the tape, of course, you try to keep the clear coat from getting all the way onto the tape. Instead, you try to apply it here in the front area, and in the back, just let the overspray go there. Like, then we go up here and tape this off so that we still have this part here, and of course, also inside here. We go all the way through the corner, and for the door, we have to open it then. So here, I've already started a bit. I've already sanded it down a little because we need to extend the application of the metallic paint a bit further in now, reaching approximately this point right here. Yeah, and then we will carefully apply the protective clear coat layer even higher up. Up here, I'm going to use a specific matting paste to achieve the desired finish. Now I'll map this area, and then everything will be matte. Then I can do the transition, the spot blender goes in here, and the rest will be polished up. So this would be the matting paste. This is a pre-cleaning application. Isn't it better for the transition? Later, when we polish it up again, it works really well. And now I'll apply it over there. For that, I actually used a polishing pad. And it was a 3000 grit polishing pad, and that is exactly what I typically use to apply the finish. So right now, we've applied the base coat. Now, of course, we have to be careful not to immediately apply the clear coat because the base coat first needs some time to dry it to a matte finish. As you saw, I also sprayed and wet the floor down there. I prefer to do that so no dust gets stirred up and all, since this is an outdoor paint job. And now, once everything is completely matte, we're going to apply the clear coat. Applying several thin layers is much better than one thick layer. You should always spray slowly, bit by bit. At first, just mist it lightly so it can grip a little. Just a light misting, exactly like this. I don't know if you saw that in the video with the time lapse. I don't know. You always just catch brief snippets of the process. And then here on the upper parts, where the overspray was, between the overspray and the original surface. That's why I masked off a bit higher up, and then I used something like an HS fin or fan. It's basically clear and thinners mixed together. You can also make this yourself. I did it with a standard aerosol spray can this time, but I also do it with a professional grade spray gun. If you have a spray gun available now, you can certainly use it. If you still have that much clear coat left over, just add exactly the same amount of thinner. Then mix it well, and you'll have your spray thinner array. I didn't want to dirty my spray gun just for this little bit, so I used cans. That works too. If you have these kinds of For these misty transitions right here, where the new paint meets the old and there's overspray, you basically just take this, apply the solvent, and then just very carefully and slowly go over the entire surface area. Over it like this, and then the paint blends in a little bit. You can polish it up nicely afterward. And of course, we do the same thing in this corner as we did over on the other side. That's why I masked off so high. I masked all the way up to here. I applied the base coat up to this point right here, and then the clear coat up to here as well. And right here was the overspray, which I carefully blended into the existing paint using the thinner, and then you can polish it all up quite nicely. But that part comes a bit later. This is just the interim result for now. And then you go over here, lay it up there, and then... So you just hold it for now. I let it sit nicely. Let it air out or dry. And then I peel off the toilet paper. Of course, it rained quite heavily last night. It absolutely poured down out there. It got a little bit damp and wet, but it's fine. Completely dry. We really got lucky there. Here we have the transition point. In this one, I'm gonna polish it up now. Normally I would wait a little longer, but I have to do it now, because the door has to go back in here and then I won't be able to reach it anymore. I did the HEG at the same time, but it's not quite there. I'll do that again, but it's already not bad. All right. And now here, it's important. I really paid attention to this transition here. Yeah, because that's what you still see when you open the door. And after that, so from here on, you actually don't see much further back here. The door hangs in front of this part. The fender sits right here. Door, yeah, right. Which also means here you can see pretty well here too. That the car isn't really painted here. I mean, from up here in, it's not anymore. It's just lightly misted. That's what machines do, right? And yeah, here it's also just lightly misted. You can see it all around here. So these are things you just don't see anymore. But here, where things are visible, like right here now, the transition really turned out well, in case that ever bothers you. The edge, like this. Then you take a 2000 grit sanding pad here and... Of course, try to go carefully and smoothly over the edge with it. Wet sanding. And what we still have to do now is the rocker panel. We'll finish it up with cavity wax, so now I've got it here. Cable grease, this one is from P-Tech. Cable grease is just a lot easier to work with. The grease is in the pressure bottle, and for that I have a probe, which I push through the hole, through the opening. Then we press from the back here and really fill it up with grease so nothing can rust anymore. From the back, of course, I do this in 2 layers. Alright friends, now the rocker panel is a little dry. Now I'm just working on the transition we have here. Yeah, I'm gonna polish from here to there now. And then it should be done. So we're done here now. Now I've polished it once with the... To achieve the final finish, I'm actually using some material from 3M. That's a rubbing compound. Now I did it with a really quite heavily worn out orange pad. You always have to be careful that nothing gets stuck because of dirt. And that's what I'm gonna do here now. Polish it up a little bit. Yeah. There's still a little bit. I can still see something very faintly. I need to go over it again now. Alright then, that sounds good. Let's take a closer look at the rocker panel. We'll do it properly, and then give the whole car a thorough wash. And then it's good. Yeah, of course we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side as well. And I honestly think it looks pretty good so far. If you really liked watching this video, please feel free to give me a big thumbs up. All the tools and products, as always, you'll find all the tools and products for this video down in the video description. See you in the next video. Bye!